How's everybody in land today? Looky who we have here. We've got Krista, still recovering, but looking mighty fine. And right next to her, in the middle of us, is Chuck Haggard. He's going to talk to us about some resetting our situational awareness. And I hope you all are doing good. We'll let the room fill up here a minute before we get too far into our conversation. But I have to tell you, everybody, we are on the road. We're in San Antonio, so you can see I'm in a car again. But this time, Chuck, I have verified my surroundings. I did this a few weeks ago from the car. I jumped in the car to get a better signal. And I was like, wait a minute, I have no idea where I am. Stop. I've got to look and see. Am I okay? And Krista, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today. Tomorrow is my 1 week anniversary of, adding metal to my body. So we're excited about that. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be on the road with you guys again soon. I'm so sad to miss everyone in San Antonio. We've had so much reach out interaction from our followers. They're going to come out and see everybody at the trailer this weekend. And we're hearing big news from the store that it's going to be an exciting weekend. They're really happy that we're on the property, and I'm so sad I'm going to miss it.
We're sad you're going to miss it too, but we rather you get better so that you can be with us for the rest of the year.
That's right. That's right. Well, we've got Chuck here. Look, we've bookended Chuck. Boom. Let's quickly, I'm going to introduce Chuck. So this is Chuck Haggard with, is it Agile Training?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Because I've seen a couple different ways that your business name is listed. I met Chuck via some other teammates, actually. Mel and Daryl Bulkey kind of was my connection with him. And Chuck came out and chatted with myself and Karen. There's Mel right there. Hey, Mel.
Hi.
Chuck came out and chatted with Karen and myself and another teammate one night. And we learned a little bit about the thought of resetting your awareness with situational awareness. So Chuck, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you want to kind of give a quick, 1-2 about who you are, where you come from, and then I'll start asking you some questions.
So I've been in law enforcement 34 years, was in a very busy police department in Kansas for 28 of those years, retired from there, took another job. I'm currently working a combination, weirdly enough, police officer firefighter job right now. I have my own business, Agile Training and Consulting. I have been a trainer with the National Law Enforcement Training Center out of Kansas City since, I don't know, the 90s. It's been a while. But I was looking at paperwork the other day. I'm in my 34th year of law enforcement. And like I say, a very, very busy department. So unfortunately, I had occasion to take reports from people, carjackings, muggings, robberies, person assaults, things like that, purse snatchings. And so from being on a busy department and seeing those kinds of crimes and interviewing victims and things like that, you start to get a feel for how criminals operate, how they victimize people, commonalities of what you see in that victimization process. I could tell you a whole lot of the people that I interviewed that were crime victims, excuse me, had some version of what Tom Givens talks about in his classes, where it's like, oh my goodness, he came out of nowhere. It all happened so fast. I don't know where he came from. And the guy didn't beam down and get you from a spaceship. He didn't fly in on a Spider-Man rope or anything like that. The bad guy was there the whole time, surveilling for victims, and none of the victims were paying attention. So what they typically do is pick on people that they see the body language of a lack of awareness. So many people in the world now are, right here the whole time. That's their whole world. They're not seeing what's out in the real world because they're looking at the fake world on their phone. They're so tied up in that. And there's other things. People will, sit in their car, mess with the stereo. Back in the day when we talked about, it was common for people to walk out of a store, put their stuff in their car, and then sit there and balance their checkbook. Our lack of situational awareness changes with the times.
So, that's interesting. I might have done something like that in my past. This has been a unique year for everyone, and a lot of people have stayed home. And what
Mhm.
we're watching is people are beginning to get out again, right? And they feel that that euphoria of freedom and getting out of the boundaries of their home. What message can we send about situational awareness that stays in the zone of being proactive versus either being paranoia or reactive?
So one of the things I'll tell you is not everybody, I'm not a ninja. I'm not, 24/7, 365. Nobody can do that. So what we have to do is habituate ourselves to have our radar on in scenarios where we really need to have it on. As we were talking before we opened up, it is humanly impossible to multitask. We serial task. If you think about what people think they're doing when they're multitasking, like let's say you're cooking dinner, you might put something in the oven and then go peel potatoes and then go do this other thing and do this other thing. And how many times do people do things like burn one of the dishes at dinner because they got sidetracked on something else? Well, that's a lack of situational awareness to the task at hand, right? And what we're talking about is we can't multitask, do more than one thing at a time. I've seen the brain scans. One of the people that I've had classes from is Alexis Artwall, who's one of the world's leading experts in this area. Dr. Alexis is really, really badass. Anything that she's written, you should read if you're a student of this stuff. So anyway, we serial task, and we tend to do some of those things poorly because we're given a lack of attention to what we really need to pay attention to. So what I tell people to do is prioritize where you're going to put your attention. If I am in, say, rush hour traffic, I won't even have music on in my car because that takes part of your brain away from driving the car. And that's a high risk. A lot of people worry about criminal assaults. And we've got something like, I forget what the last numbers are, 14,000 homicides in the United States, but we typically have someplace between 50 and 60,000 traffic fatalities in the United States. So your odds of getting whacked in a car wreck are higher than being murdered.
You actually bring a very good point. I think personally, I think if situational awareness is in that moment of person-on-person crime, but it really is about your surroundings. It could be about being aware in traffic and being that offensive driver versus having, being aware about what's happening going left and right.
Well, if you look at the very unfortunate the helicopter crash where Kobe Bryant was killed, they're looking at that in the investigation. What was the root cause was the pilot flew into clouds where he lost his visibility, and then he lost track of where the mountain was. So he literally lost his situational awareness because he was prioritizing like getting to where he was going versus safely getting to where he was going. And he ends up with a helicopter, crashed into a mountain and a bunch of people dead. That would be a glaring example of situational awareness with a very negative outcome. So driving will get you killed. Driving, if you look at what do we talk about? Texting and driving, that's a situational awareness problem. You are putting your concentration on a text message, fiddling with your phone, things like that, versus driving, which is really what's important now. So if we look at that in a criminal assault paradigm, when we want to maximize our situational awareness, and my analogy for rush hour traffic driving would be transitional spaces. Say you go to the grocery store, you go to the Walmart, something like that. A lot of times it's not in the store we have these problems, but as again, Tom Gibbons noted, there isn't a lot of street crime. There's a lot of parking lot crime. People get jacked on convenience store lots. They get jacked at the gas pumps. They get jacked on the Walmart parking lot. They get jacked in places like that are kind of the urban version of a Serengeti water hole. So where do the lions wait for prey to show up? Around the water hole. You see that very common. So if I'm in a store, I'm going to do my shopping. I'm looking at my grocery list. I'm ringing up. What I tend to do excuse me, pollen's gotten high here. My allergies are a little bit active. What I will do is when I get into that transitional space, like I'm walking out of the store, I'm going to go to my car. I'm going to survey the parking lot on the way. I may or may not take a direct route to my car. I'm going to look for not just cars in the parking lot and cars speeding through the parking lot, but people sitting in cars in the parking lot, if they're not acting right, if they're not acting as though they're coming and going and there to shop. Who just hangs out in a parking lot?
Right.
That's aberrant behavior that should catch our attention. And what is something I'll tell, especially the ladies, because ladies tend to be attacked differently than men. If you think about the stereotypical idea of a rapist, let's say, guy's going to jump out of the bushes wearing a ski mask and drag somebody off. It is much more likely to happen to a lady, especially a smaller lady, than it is, a big ugly guy like me. That's just the way that works, right?
Right. Chuck, I hate to interrupt you, but I think Karen was going to say something. She keeps starting to talk and then stopping.
Go ahead.
So, Chuck, I have a question because we had a young woman at our event that was talking to me about situational awareness, and I asked her, well, do you ever have any place where you are fearful? And this young woman was very afraid of going out into the mall. And so for others that are watching, have that kind of sick feeling sometimes, or they don't have that sick feeling but meeting out at it, what do you tell them? Because we want people to go out and enjoy their life, but we also want them to pay attention to their surroundings. Tell her.
So I would tell you, if you're in the public spaces of a mall, statistically speaking, that's an extraordinarily safe place to be, unless you are in a mall where, and I've known that to happen, some of the large metro areas where you have like groups of people show up, some of them are gang members, and then they have a gang beef, turns into a shooting right there, a shootout right there in the middle of the mall. So in the mall, I would have some situational awareness like, hey, that looks like a group of Crips hanging out all together. Perhaps I will go the other way type of thing. But your odds I think you said that the young lady was 13 years old, didn't you? Yeah. The odds of her actually being stranger abducted inside a mall are just extraordinarily low, particularly during normal, when people hang out, shopping hours, things like that. Now, if she's coming and going on her own, if she's going to those transitional spaces, things like that, if you think back to some of these high profile cases where a young lady has disappeared, virtually 100% of the time, it has been they got targeted in the mall. They're being followed out to their car, and then they get jacked in the parking lot before they can get to their car or get locked in the car. So I would say if I was leaving the mall, one of the things I would do is look back, see is anybody following me to my car? Look at the cars around my car. Is anybody waiting near my car? Do I have the proverbial kidnap van parked next to my car? Things like that. Most malls have some sort of security. If you're uncomfortable in a situation like that, I would take the extra time to ask somebody in an official capacity, say mall security, hey, can you walk me out to my car? Or, hey, there's a creepy guy in the car. He's been there all day next to my car. Can we call the cops and have this guy checked out?
So Chuck, for those people that just popped on, can you define transitional space?
So the transitional space would be something like you're leaving a store, going out to your car. You have to transition the parking lot. Maybe you went and got gas. You went into the convenience store. You're coming back to your car. Things like that. We're typically fairly immune. I can't say immune, but it's much lower risk. It's hard to jack somebody when you're doing 40 miles an hour down the road, So when we're in our car, unless we're in a really sketchy neighborhood, stopped at a stoplight or something like that, typically we're fairly safe. Typically we're fairly safe in an establishment, but it's getting like from the car into the store, from the store into the car. And that's where a lot of people sacrifice a lot of situational awareness. Because if you think about, You get out of your car, you're checking your grocery list or whatever the case may be. You're coming out of the store, your hands are full. Maybe you have grocery bags, something like that. People are putting a lot of thought into that transitional space and the danger of, what's my most important thing now? I have to safely get from the front door of the grocery store or the Walmart or wherever I'm at and negotiate this parking lot to my car, or vice versa. So some of the things I do to enhance that, like if I'm in the store, even if I haven't gotten that much, and instead of doing the He-Man thing and carrying all the bags, I'll put them in the cart and I'll push the cart out to the car and then unload from the cart. The cart gives me something to put in between me and somebody else. It keeps my hands empty so that I don't have to drop bags or anything like that. Let's say if I have to go for pepper spray or if I have to pull a gun, my hands are already not all entangled in the shopping bags. Something I talk about, and when you're in a transitional space, if you have OC, which I highly suggest, is you can pre-stage that, have that in your hand ready to go while you're pushing the grocery cart or what have you to the car. So a little bit of thought in these scenarios goes a long way to enhancing not only your situational awareness so that you see something coming, but that you have a very quick response to it.
Great. Thank you. That was a perfect explanation. Can you quickly, because we're already over 15 minutes, that went really fast. Can you kind of show us some body behaviors or things that people might recognize if they were in a crowd or in the parking lot and saw one or two people they were concerned about? Some grooming tendencies? Is there some other visual feature they could be aware of?
So one of the things that I put out to people is pay attention to I coined the term jokingly, that stuff just don't look right. That crap right there, that don't look right. When it don't look right, normally it's because it ain't right. So if I have somebody doing something that's aberrant behavior, why are two dudes hanging out at the cart corral at the Walmart? They're not coming and going. They're just kind of hanging out. Why is a guy sitting in a car looking around in the parking lot at a Walmart? Perhaps they're doing a podcast, but perhaps they have nefarious behavior in mind. Yeah. So if you have somebody that sees you and then makes a beeline to you, or makes a beeline so that they will be ahead of you in an intercept position, that's a danger cue. If you have somebody approach you and they're trying to get closer than probably about 6-8 feet, they're doing something like asking you for $1, asking you what the time is, and they're encroaching from the stranger social space, trying to get into that the distance where friends talk, say 3 to 4 feet away. That's a danger cue, because that's again not known. Why are they trying to get that close to you in that scenario? So when you talk about grooming cues, what you were talking about, one of the ones that Craig Douglas talks about in his Managing Unknown Contacts block is in anything where you touch in the face or something like that. Let's say I asked you for $1 and you refused, and I do one of these. It's a sign of duress. It's a sign of internal debate, internal stress. And it's situational. If I gave you bad news, let's say the stock market just crashed and you just lost a lot of money, you might be like, oh my goodness, that's horrible. Or my dog died or something like that. But in this context, I just refuse to give somebody $1. Hey buddy, I can't help you out. They're doing one of these, and what they're doing is they're thinking this person's going to make me rob them. And it's particularly if they cluster these cues, like they ask you for $1, like, hey, buddy, I can't help you out. And they do one of those, look behind them, they're looking around. That's not congruent to the behavior. They want to talk to you. They want to get $1. Why are they looking around the parking lot? They're looking for witnesses. They're looking for cops driving by, things like that, because they're thinking about doing something they shouldn't. So a grooming cue, maybe wiping the head, the neck, doing one of these on the arm, something like that, that would be a grooming cue.
That's good. Thank you. No, that was very helpful.
I'm sorry. I've got 2 follow-up questions to that. So we're going to go on like normal. But the 2 follow-up questions I have, it's 2-part question. One is, how many of all of those reports, how many of those women had a feeling that something wasn't right that they didn't act on? And then in terms of right now, we're in a different environment than we've ever been, where people are maybe more concerned that they're going to hurt somebody's feelings or be called out because the person did that, and they're now feeling like, get out of my space. So the first thing is, how many of your victims you took reports from had a feeling? And then second is, what should these ladies do when they have that feeling?
So a number of them did. Unfortunately, a whole lot of them never saw it coming. It's like, bam, get hit in the side of the head and your purse gets snatched, something like that. But what ladies tend to do is they be socially nice, and they don't want to be seen as a mean person or rude or impolite or something like that. So they will nice themselves into being a crime victim. Gavin DeBecker talked about that at length in his book, Gift of Fear. He's got some really good stuff in that book. Ignore the gun control part because he's just off base there. But the crime stuff, like he talked about a case where a lady was going to get on an elevator, and a sketchy guy was on the elevator. So she didn't want to get on the elevator. But then she's like, I don't want him to think I'm not a nice person. So she gets on the elevator, and it turns into a violent criminal sexual assault. And that's the kind of thing that gift of fear that he talks about, those warning signs you need to pay attention to. It's okay to be rude to people if you need to be rude to people. I've worked several cases like that where a lady walks out to their car and there's a sketchy dude hanging around by their car. So they're thinking, I want to get to my car. And what they should do is go back inside, go get security or something like that. But they think, if I just don't look at that guy and I go to my car, then maybe he'll just, I won't pay attention to him, so I'm just going to get in my car. And they walk right into basically an ambush. So I would say pay attention to those cues. When you have that fear factor, it's there for a reason.
That was Gift of Fear. Who was that by?
Gift of Fear was Gavin DeBecker.
Okay, thank you.
I saw one of the question pop up in the chat about the grooming cues, things like that. That's not a book. It's a body of study that Craig Douglas of ShivWorks aptly named it MUC, or Managing Unknown Contacts. And as part of that, recognizing pre-assault cues, pre-assault indicators, he has a whole list of those that he formalized: grooming cues, target glancing, definitive weight shift, things like that. I have my own take on it. I've added a few on there when I'm doing classes. I talk about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight. We are at 23 minutes and people are still throwing up quick comments and such from there. There were a lot of questions, right? So we talked about Dr. Alexis Artwall and Tom Gibbons and everyone else. We'll put together some links if we can come up with some for those that were asking, and they could click over and learn about those individual people. Any last words you want to share with us before we finish out our business for the night?
Live life, put your phone down. That will help everything we're talking about. Why you want to watch somebody else's life on your phone? What are we doing here?
Right. And it's such a thing, right? Guilty. I'm guilty,
yeah,
to be honest. Well, thank you again for joining us. And thank you, Karen and Mel and Mandy from the road. And I look forward to seeing you ladies. Last week, we had Renee Ernst with True Timber, and they're going to do a little True Timber. I think we're doing a hat for the giveaway. So our winner for last week was Brooke Erickson. So congratulations, Brooke. I'll reach out and get your information. For everyone who comments, likes, and shares this post, we've got a Shoot Like a Girl swag pack that we'll send out, and we'll announce the winner of that. So we'll pull a name from all those people that are commenting, liking, and sharing. And we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Chuck. Thank you.
Bye.